Sup there guys, just some ordinary dude here, and we've got another installation of 10-ish minute talks. I am joined today by two different guests. We've got Gilbert Gan, how are you today?
Quite a bit rainy tonight. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, and we've also got everyone's favourite Dosser, Fictional Media Bully, how are you?
Hello, Plodder. Still on your uninspired Dosser jokes, eh?
Well, they're not jokes particularly, so, But anyway, today we are going to talk about our favourite video games. They can be from any time period, any genre, any games that just come to mind when we think of our all-time favourites. We've done podcasts recently on like Sonic and Crash and all that sort of thing. So I think this is a natural progression from that. So I guess we'll start with you, Gilbert. What would your favourite video games be?
It's mostly Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and right now I'm playing Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've heard they're the two best ones in the series. I mean, I've only played a few Grand Theft Auto games, mostly San Andreas.
San Andreas is always the best video game that ever exists.
It's definitely one. I don't know if I'd call it the absolute best, but it is definitely up there. It's at least in my top 10, maybe my top 5. I'm not sure.
I think
even kids in my generation, they played it.
Everybody played it when they were like 9, 10 years old. Like, when I was a kid, San Andreas first came out, and it had an 18 plus age rating, but nobody cared. Everybody had it. My 8-year-old brother had it, I had it, all our friends had it at school. Kids played it. Nobody cared.
I think I played... I think I played Grand Theft Auto when I was... Can't remember how old I was, but I was definitely young. I think I was around 7 or 8. I certainly remember watching one of the Jackass movies around that time.
Yeah.
And I didn't really do any of the missions. I didn't even know it was like a mission game. I just thought it was like an interactive piece of media that would allow you to just be a bad person, like get in a car and crash into others.
To be fair, that's all I did. My brother had the game, so he did all the missions, and I just went around shooting people.
I always enjoyed the cheats, or even using the katana to chop anyone
Oh
off.
yeah, all the cheats, like, because some of them, like, they could make you invincible or jump really high, or you could get like loads of bazookas and flamethrowers and stuff. Yeah, like unlimited ammo. You could get like bazookas and just blow stuff up. You could sometimes roam the city streets as like a god with unlimited health, unlimited ammo. You can just go around blowing stuff up, and it's like, it's hilarious.
It's like anarchy incarnate.
Yeah, it's like it's Superman the game, but much better than the actual Superman game.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Superman. I remember.
Well, that's not one of your favourites, is it? Bloody hell! That was one of the crappiest games ever made.
No. I remember researching that the N64 game was originally developed as if it was going to be an open world game.
Yeah.
But it ended up being different because of like company politics and such, as well as the fact that the developers were no good.
No, that naturally makes me want to see a Rockstar Superman game where you could just go around cities and burn shit and punch shit up with all your power. That would be amazing. Right, somebody make that. Fun. Tell Rockstar Games they need to make that.
Is it funny that
one being as an instant punch? Kind of feel like the One Punch Man right there.
Yeah. And actually, when you talk about Grand Theft Auto, another game that comes to mind for me is a slightly more kid-friendly version of it. Simpsons Hit and Run. Anyone remember that?
That's a great game.
Well, I've heard that on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Simpsons Hit and Run. It came out, I think, about a year after San Andreas, when Grand Theft Auto was like at its height of popularity, and it's basically that, just a slightly more kid-friendly version. So you can't actually kill people in it, but you can like run them over, and you can steal stuff from them, and you do a lot of the same stuff. And it had missions, it had a lot of the same mechanics and things you could do as Grand Theft Auto. It was just a bit more child-friendly. And of course you had more familiar characters because they're Simpsons characters, so that sort of made up for the stuff you couldn't do compared to GTA. But it was also a very good game. Like it was like Grand Theft Auto for pre-teen kids sort of thing, you know what I mean?
In fact, actually, so I haven't played that many Grand Theft Auto games in like years.
No.
And Simpsons Hit and Run is probably my favorite Grand Theft Auto game at the moment.
Have you played San Andreas?
No, I haven't, but
Well,
my
play
brother
San
keeps telling
Andreas.
me.
But before that, play Crash Twinsanity, because, you're overdue.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's just the only Grand Theft Auto games I have are 1 and 3, and the first game is really primitive compared to the later games, isn't it? Hey
Yeah.
Gilbert, have you played the first one?
No, I haven't. But the first Grand Theft Auto I played was Vice City.
That's when it started getting good. If you actually play the first 2 Grand Theft
Aye.
Auto games on PlayStation 1, terrible. Bird's eye view, all you can do is drive a car around, get out of it, and you can get out and nick cars. That's about all you can do in those games. It is
And
very
probably
primitive.
get blasted.
Yeah,
And probably get blasted multiple times.
yeah. But they're very terrible. I mean, even Grand Theft Auto 3, it was groundbreaking at the time, but it's not aged very well. Like,
I mean, 3 is better than the first 2.
oh, by a
but
mile.
Fine.
But it was
Yeah,
probably considered a great game, like back in 2001 when there wasn't anything else better. But now it's like Grand Theft Auto as a series has evolved so much past that. It's like you actually go back to 3 and you're like, this is a bit underwhelming.
In fact, here's something hilarious. The PlayStation 1 version of Grand Theft Auto 2, as far as I'm aware, is the only Grand Theft Auto game to be rated lower than mature.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like,
Rated for
teen.
teen?
Well, yeah, there wasn't anything you could do in Grand Theft Auto 2, so why not? To be honest, I don't see why you couldn't rate it 3+. You literally can't do anything in the game. Not that I remember, anyway.
I mean,
Yeah, they're very primitive games.
Yeah.
I mean,
But,
San Andreas went too far when it got into a controversy with the infamous hot coffee.
Yeah.
That's where they get the rated 18.
I think I've heard of that. Didn't it get an adult-only rating or something?
That's which is true. The controversial hot coffee mod.
Yeah. But, so obviously, like, would there be any other games outside of GTA that you're really into, Gilbert?
Well, I did manage to play a few Assassin's Creed games.
Oh, yeah, I think
over
I've played
time.
Crash Assassin's Creed 2. I do remember that being quite good. What's your overall take on that game series?
Well, I've been playing. So far, the current Assassin's Creed game that I've been playing is, I believe, Black Flag.
Alright. Yeah. And are they
Assassin's-
all like really
Yeah, the
good
fourth
games
one.
or
They are very great.
yeah. Again, I've only played
There's
one of
also
them,
other-
so yeah.
I did even manage to play a few games in my life, such as Counter-Strike.
Alright. I never played
Yeah.
that game, so I can't really comment on that. But
Yeah, FPS games,
oh yeah, like Call of Duty and that sort of thing, yeah.
Call of Duty, Half-Life,
Yeah.
you can name it.
Half-Life, what's the joke? Was it Half-Life 2 or Half-Life 3 where they said it's never going to come out or something? There was a joke about that, wasn't there?
There might have been a joke.
Yeah, there's
I mean, they went
like
with
Half-Life
the
3,
VR
I think that
version.
was it. Oh, there's a Half-Life 3 will come out when the Earth dies or something, I don't know, something stupid like that.
Yeah, it's kind of a stupid idea.
Yeah, well, it's an internet joke, they're all fucking stupid. Remember the Chuck Norris jokes from years ago?
No?
Yeah, I'll send you a link after the video's over, but some of them were pretty hilarious in how ridiculous they were. But anyway.
Yeah. So, speaking of favorite games, so Just an Ordinary Dude mentioned Crash Twinsanity to me,
Yeah.
and now that's not one of my favorites. I've only just started playing it, but one of my favorite games ever made is Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped
Oh,
for the
yeah, that's
original
up there.
PlayStation.
I mean, obviously, we've already sort of covered the original Crash games in a separate podcast, so I suppose there's not much point going on into it too much here. But yes, Crash 3
Certainly-
is one of my all-time favourite games as well. It is
Certainly
it's
not.
phenomenal.
Like all you need to know, Gilbert, is that as far as Crash Bandicoot goes, I only really enjoy 3 and CTR and potentially Twinsanity from what I played of it.
Yeah, CTR is it's mostly, by far, the only Crash game that I played.
Yeah. I mean, I really like Crash Team Racing, although I will say the story's a bit weak, but whatever. The actual gameplay's good.
Somehow it has a better story than Crash 2.
To be honest, I mean, from what I remember Twin Sanity probably has one of the better stories. I mean, Crash isn't exactly known for having great stories, so it is what it is. But yeah,
Aye.
I mean, you don't play a Crash Bandicoot game for the story. Let's be honest. You know, same with Sonic. Like, I'm not going to go too much into Sonic. Like, there's a few Sonic games I consider in my favourites, like Sonic 2, Sonic 3K, Sonic Mania, Sonic Generations, maybe the adventure games. But they're ones that we've either talked about in previous podcasts or plan to talk about in their own podcasts. So it's probably not really worth going into Sonic the Hedgehog too much right now for redundancy purposes.
I will say, if someone asks me what is my favorite video game ever, this is partially nostalgia and partially because it's just a really good game. Super Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah.
Like,
I've never had that much experience with Mario, but what the games I have played from the Mario series have been very good.
Like, Mario is like one of the few game franchises I'm genuinely a fan of because most of its games have been very good.
Yeah.
Like, at the very least. There's like one or two I don't really like that much, but most of them have been brilliant. And Mario 64 is easily my favorite video game ever, and it was the first video game I ever played, so there you go. Favoritism might be partially due to nostalgia. Yeah. It's like, playing it now, it does have some rough edges. The collision can be a bit hiccupy. And
you can have a favourite that's not the best, though, can't you? I mean, look, going back to Twin Sanity, it's one of my favourite games. I don't claim it's one of the best. It has a lot of rough edges.
Yeah. But the thing is, Mario 64, even though it has some rough edges, it has aged surprisingly well. It does so much right with its mechanics, a lot of its level designs, and especially how it structures its collectibles. Like, it was basically the game that gave birth to the collectathon subgenre in 3D platformers for a while, which stagnated very quickly.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring up Super Mario 64, because obviously that's a game that I've never actually played it, but I probably would really like it if I did play it. And the reason I go on this is because another one of my favourite video games, which many people will say is very similar to Super Mario 64, is a game that came out a few years later on the PS1, Toy Story 2, by Traveller's Tales. Now that's often compared to Mario 64 as a very similar style game, but with Toy Story characters slapped on it. And from what I remember from playing that as a kid, that was a really, really good game. Like, as far as like movie, video game like tie-in titles go, that's got to be one of the best ones I can think of, quite honestly.
Toy Story 2 on PS1 is a very well designed game. It feels good to play. The levels are creative and surprisingly big for a PS1 game. Not Tomb Raider huge, but huge enough where as a kid you feel the scope, but it's not overwhelming.
The game it really makes you feel like you're a toy in exploring a human world, and the scale is really emphasised in the level design, sort of thing. And it's just really good. Like, it's just a fun game. Like, the way you can like explore and the way the levels are designed, you can have like vertical exploration and horizontal exploration. The music's really good as well.
Even the structure of collectibles is done right. All you have are Pizza Planet tokens and little MacGuffins here and there that weave into collecting them. Yeah. So it's not really anything bloated like, say, Donkey Kong 64 or Spyro 2, or the first two Spyro games, really. Yeah. It's just right. It makes sense. It's coherent. Yeah. And also, the game also has one of the few cases where backtracking it actually works in a platforming game. Yeah. Because a lot of these games, you're doing a lot of collecting, they try to implement adventure elements. Yeah. And it would make you go back and revisit earlier stages, but most of the time, it's just to pad the length rather than add any meaningful gameplay. But in Toy Story 2 for the PS1, there is one time where the backtracking is actually good, and that's the level Alleys and Gullies, where the first time you play it, it's just a basic open sandbox where there isn't a lot to get in it. But when you come back, once you unlock the grappling hook, you're granted access to one of the most difficult challenges in the entire game, which is a linear climb to the top.
Oh, yeah. And when
it's practically a level in its own. It's so seamless in its execution. Yeah. It's brilliant.
And it's like, when you do finally get to the top, it's very anticlimactic because the fucking clown boss or whatever the hell it was that was up there was quite easy. But yeah, it's like,
to be fair, the bosses in Toy Story 2 are pretty bad.
well, to be fair, most of them are at least thematically interesting. Like, you know, in Andy's neighbourhood, you're in a back garden, and sure enough, you've got like a kite outside, and that's the mini boss, and that makes sense. And then you've got like, you know, a cowboy boss in Al's penthouse, and you've got the Buzz. I'm surprised the utility belt Buzz wasn't a main boss, but at least you got like a mini boss of him in the Spaceland level. Like most of the bosses were thematically relevant, like the jackhammer from the construction yard level. But then you have like, oh, alleys and goodies set in a back alley of a city. What should the boss be? A weird circle clown toy. It's like, I'm not sure where they came up with that idea from, but there you go.
I get that the other bosses are like aesthetically dramatic. It's just that in terms of gameplay, they're very easy and repetitive.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that are a bit hard. The jackhammer's quite
couple
difficult.
Of decent ones.
Yeah, the jackhammer's quite difficult because of what you got to do, and so is the last one. What's his name? The guy who hammers the floor and it sends like a shockwave that follows you. What's his name? The blacksmith.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the only boss I liked in the game really was the plain one, like the first actual boss.
I don't know. I did like Zurg. That was all right.
Zurg was okay. It's just that all of them just kind of like once you figure it out, it's very repetitive, and they don't really change up their patterns or whatever. But if the worst I have to say about the game is the boss and admittedly the poor story adaptation of the film.
Well, again, the adaptation of the story was going to be muddled up a bit. I mean, obviously, to make it fit within the context of a collectathon game. But you know, it is what it is.
It worked.
Talking about collectathons and platformers, so Gilbert, have you had any like what experience have you had with like say platforming titles? Do you really like any of them? Would you consider any of them in your favourites?
Sorry, can you say that again?
So like platforming titles, you know, platformer games or collectathon games. Are there any of those that would be in your favourites that you can think of?
I don't know if I can find a few platform games that I can play.
Like there could be a Mario game, there could be a Sonic game, a Crash game, there could be like anything like that, you know. It could be anything, you know.
Well, I did manage to play a few Sonic games, so I'm just hoping there would be more on PC.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're not really going too much into Sonic in this one because we're doing that in other podcasts. Right. But are there any particular Sonic titles you'd say are really, really good that you could? Yeah.
I think Sonic Generations, alongside Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformers, were both my best games so far.
I mean, Sonic Generations I've played, and that is a really good game, mainly because it's one of the few Sonic games that gets that perfect combination, that perfect balance between, speed, platforming, and exploration.
Okay, let's not get into that, dude. Let's not get into that.
Okay, alright. You know, yeah, to be fair, we are going to go through that in another video, so, But yeah, so obviously there's plenty of games you could come up with. I mean, other ones that I haven't particularly mentioned, Streets of Rage 2 from my childhood. That was an exceptionally good beat 'em up game. I don't know if either of you have ever played that.
I haven't.
I have played Streets of Rage 2. In fact, it's the only Streets of Rage game I actually played.
What did you think of it?
Well, here's the thing. I generally don't like beat 'em up games. I find them to be very monotonous and clunky.
You might like Streets of Rage 4, because that's like 2, but obviously upgraded because it's many years later.
You didn't let me finish. Here's the thing. Like, I generally don't like beat 'em up games, but Streets of Rage 2 is one of the few I can kind of play and somewhat enjoy, because there is a bit of depth to the mechanics that makes it so that if you're beating up a guy, you can, like, change it up a little bit to keep it a bit fresh and such.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That and the music is god tier. The music in that game is amazing.
You know why? Part of the reason why the music is as good as it is, a lot of it is directly derived from actual big pop songs at the time. Like, the stage 4 level under Logic, the theme in that one, that is derived from a couple of songs from the early 90s, obviously. Move Any Mountain and Ebenezer Good.
I mean, I don't mean entirely in terms of compositions. The compositions are brilliant. I mean, like, just the technical aspects. Like, for a Mega Drive game, the music sounds a lot more like, it sounds more like a CD in comparison to what you expect from Mega Drive games.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Streets of Rage games, particularly the sequels, did really like push the hardware to its limitations of what it could achieve.
Streets of Rage 3 had some music that made me go, "Wow, I can't believe this is actually on the Mega Drive."
Yeah, it's one of those like
really
Streets of
it.
Yeah. I mean, the only issue with Streets of Rage 3 is that it almost pushed the hardware a bit too much, because I don't think the music sounded as great as it intended to be. And sure enough, the remake years later would enhance the music far more because it wouldn't have those hardware limitations. But you almost like it probably sounded different in the minds of the composers when they were making it, and what the end result was still good, but didn't quite have that oomph in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, fair enough. Yeah, and so, speaking of favorite games, so yeah, I've mentioned Spyro, and Spyro Year of the Dragon is one of them. Gilbert, ever heard of Spyro?
Yeah, I've heard a few Spyro games.
Yeah, I've been.
So yeah, Spyro was another franchise that declined after the original developer like stopped making games for it. But like Crash, Spyro is a franchise where I only like one mainline game probably.
Well, I did play a few Metal Gear games as well, back when I was a kid.
Oh, Metal Gear?
Yeah.
I think I've played Metal Gear Solid years ago. It was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah,
the first Metal Gear Solid was very great.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, a funny story is when I got, like, I asked my brother if I could get Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation 1. I was 14 years old, I believe. And they kept saying it would be a game I wouldn't like, or something like that, because it was like adult, grey, something like that. And I essentially made a bet with my dad, saying if I like this game, I get 10 quid. And I ended up loving the game, so he gave me 10 quid.
Yeah, but you could have just pretended that you liked the game, even if you didn't, to get the 10 quid.
But the thing is, I genuinely liked Metal Gear Solid. It was a really good stealth game with a very captivating, very complex, multi-layered story involving like government stuff.
It's 3 CDs as well.
2 CDs in my copy, but yeah, it is a huge game. I was a bit surprised to find out, wait, PS1 games can be more than one disc?
Yeah.
And then I played Final Fantasy VII, which had 3 discs. And
I saw Gran Turismo 2, where they also had a disc B for that game.
Oh, swell. And also, Final Fantasy IX has 4 discs on the PS1. 4 discs. It's like, wow, this is a massive game.
Yeah. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, I think I remember hearing this when Square was making Final Fantasy VII. They were originally going to make it for N64, but when Nintendo said it was going to be a cartridge system, well, Square was like, all right, this is not going to work with our vision for a first 3D Final Fantasy game. So they jumped to the PlayStation instead because CDs could hold far more data.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the PS1 just absolutely killed the N64. It was huge.
Oh yeah, the PS1 just took the world by storm. I mean, a few years before that, you had the Sega and Nintendo console wars, where they're all fighting each other, and then suddenly Sony comes out with a big PlayStation and fucking trumps the pair of them, and you're like, oh wow, okay.
To be fair, Sony was able to trump both of them because they happened to make crucial mistakes to their hardware and some business practices around the same time. Like, Nintendo was good with business practices to an extent, but the cartridge decision for the 64 was like, a huge turnover for a lot of third-party developers.
Yeah.
And Sega is Sega. They were absolute nutcases.
Yeah. But anyway, going back to because we're starting to get a bit long now, and I've got to go out soon. Let's just sort of touch on any other titles either of you've got that you just want to briefly touch on regarding favourite games that come to your mind before we wrap things up.
I really wish I could play some of those Super Smash Bros. Franchise.
Yeah, I've never played that, but again, I've heard a lot of good
Oh,
things
I
about
love
it.
Super Smash Brothers. I've played most, if not all, of the games. Most of the games, at least.
Or probably the WWE 2K games.
Oh yeah, so a couple of my favourites from that series. Here Comes the Pain from 2003, just because it had such a great stacked roster in it.
Yeah.
And also probably SmackDown vs Raw 2007, because it had one of the best GM modes on it, General Manager modes, that I used to play.
A lot of people really loved that game.
Yeah, they were really good.
I've
I
heard
only wanted to play the 2K24 game.
I've heard WWF No Mercy for the Nintendo 64 was a very good game. Like, some people say that's like the best wrestling game on those old consoles.
I don't know. I've played a few games from that time period. They were very underwhelming. Basically, anything that goes past about 2002 for me, I'm like, no, this is too dated.
Yeah, the post-Attitude Era.
Yeah, like basically anything from like the 20th century. No, wrestling games were just too primitive for my tastes back then. Believe it or not, Simpsons Wrestling was probably one of the more advanced games of its time as far as wrestling games go. I've played some of the late 90s WWE games and I'm like, wow, these aren't... Then again, I got used to the newer ones first, so I suppose that's not really fair. But, you know, it is what it is. But
speaking of, one more favourite game, because Just Some Ordinary Dude here told me this was probably the first game he might have ever played, and it's based on a Disney movie. Do you recognise the game, dude?
I'm assuming you're referring to Emperor's New Groove, but that's not the first game I played.
Okay, I remember you were telling me it was...
No, that was the first PS1 game I played. I had a Mega Drive before that. Sonic's 1 and 2 are the first two games I ever played.
Oh, so the first PS1 game was Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
Emperor's New Groove is essentially the unofficial Croc 3.
Pretty much. It's made by the same developing company. It's got a lot of the same mechanics, just a bit tweaked up.
It's basically... It's kind of weird because the Croc games were generally okay. I didn't mind the first game. I loved the first half of it, but didn't like the second half. And Croc 2 was generally okay, even though it was a bit unpolished in some of its design choices. And then you get Emperor's New Groove on the PS1, and it's like, this game holds up really well. Wow. Like, it has very good self-aware humor. Like, it's very self-aware that it's a video game. That, like, there's even, like, there's a bit of dialogue during the river section of the game where one of the characters says, this scene was much shorter in the film. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, humor in the game, yeah.
Wait, what did you say, Gilbert?
They're, like, breaking the fourth wall.
Oh, breaking... Yeah, there's a lot of breaking the fourth wall humor. It's like...
Thinking about it, Emperor Cusco is like the Deadpool of... well, actually, no, Deadpool would be part of Disney now, wouldn't he?
But yeah, Emperor's New Groove was basically Shrek before Shrek, to an extent.
Yeah, I suppose so.
But yeah, the game
should do a crossover.
But yeah, the game itself is very well designed. It controls quite well, particularly with an analog stick. Not so much with a D-pad, but definitely with an analog stick. And the level design is very fresh and inventive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of and the graphics are really nice. The music is great. I love the music in the game. There's also some good gameplay variety, like especially this is another one where in the film it was just like one short-lived scene, a few seconds, like some carnival bits. Whereas in the game it's several levels.
Fair enough.
Right.
But yeah, I do remember Emperor's New Groove being a really good game, even though I didn't get through to playing that much of it. But yeah, whatever.
It's very well designed. Probably one of the best 3D platformers I played on either PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64. It's so good.
Yeah, it is a really good game.
Have you guys ever played any real-time strategy games?
Like, give an example.
Warcraft, Command and Conquer.
Never really played those games. Are they particularly any good?
Oh, I see.
I haven't.
RTS games, RTS themed games.
I haven't played any RTS games. I did play some tower defense games on a computer.
Oh yeah, yeah, we've all played those before. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I used to love Bloons Tower Defense. Anyone played that game?
Yeah, I've played
No.
some of those games, some of those versions, and they were pretty good. There's like little time wasters.
I loved Bloons Tower Defense 3 in particular. It was such a great game. The first one I don't mind, even though it's very primitive.
Yeah.
But yeah, and yeah, actually, yeah. I'm still like a bit unrelated to favorite games, but I'm a bit baffled that Argonaut made Emperor's New Groove an amazing game, and around the same time
they made the Aladdin game in 2000.
They made a second rate 3D Aladdin game.
Like, why did they even make that in
probably.
2000? Aladdin was like 8 years before that. It just seemed random.
Is that I'm guessing the TV show was still popular on the Disney Channel, so they thought might as well.
I thought that was before. I don't know.
I don't know, probably reruns or something. But yeah, they made a 3D Aladdin game on the PS1, which I was very excited to hear about as a teenager because it's like, you know what, I'm growing to like Aladdin.
Yeah.
And I was researching the game, and I found that you played as Princess Jasmine in it, and Abu. It's like,
It sounds
this
really
game must
good,
be
but then
sick.
you play it and you're like,
It's so janky and poorly designed. Like, it has limited lives and limited continues.
You can tell which game they put the effort into and which game was just a B project.
It's like, this game has limited lives and limited continues, and yet it has a save feature. It's like, they contradict each other. Don't do this.
Well, but anyway, so because we're already over an hour, half hour into this, and I do need to go out soon, we'll just sort of wrap it up. So, a few other game titles that I would call some of my favourites that I haven't mentioned yet. I'll just very briefly touch on them. Tony Hawk's Underground's one of them. Really good skateboarding game, great controls and mechanics, and a really interesting story. I really like that game. Little bit of Planet 2 because of all the creativity that was in there. Not only a solid story mode and some good visuals, but also a really good advanced level creator mode, which was really fantastic to play when I was younger. Spider-Man on the PS4, that's got to be up there. Great, brilliant game all around. Brilliant story, brilliant gameplay, brilliant graphics, all of that stuff. Fantastic game. You said you made an Gilbert. Is that one you're familiar with?
What?
Is that one you're familiar with? When you just sort of made like a reactionary sound when I mentioned Spider-Man PS4.
You know, I did remember playing a few Spider-Man games. Probably Spider-Man 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
On the PC.
Oh, the old Spider-Man 2, based on the film, not the new PS5 Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's two different Spider-Man 2s now from completely different eras, so just to confuse everyone.
Probably the reboot.
Yeah. I would play Spider-Man PS2 on the PS5, but I'm not buying a new console just for one game. Fuck that.
Actually, I found this out. Spider-Man 2 on PC from the mid-2000s is actually very different from the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox game.
Yeah.
Made by a different development studio. It's like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah. I'm not sure why they did that, but whatever. Maybe the PS2 version couldn't work on PC.
And yeah, dude, you mentioned some skateboarding games or whatever. It's like, you know what? I love Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. That is a great game on the PS2. And I also love Thrasher Presents Skate and Destroy on the PlayStation 1, which was like the most realistic skateboarding game at the time. It's more of a simulator.
Yeah.
It's basically Skate before Skate.
Yeah. But do you also know FMB's favourite skateboarding game of all time, everyone? Simpsons Skateboarding.
No, I did not even play that. I did not play that.
I thought you did play that.
I have not played that yet. I might do, but I have not played that yet.
Yeah,
but actually, I do have a favourite skateboarding game that's not Tony Hawk or Thrasher.
Right.
And that's the skateboarding minigame in Spyro 3, Year of the Dragon.
Okay.
It's actually very competently made in that game. Very well made. Like, especially like the first time, it's just to like kill some baddies. The second time it's to do tricks. The third time it's to do racing with a turbo mechanic that's very engaging. And the fourth time you use it, it's in one of the most difficult yet thoroughly cathartic challenges in the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, fair enough.
So brutal, that last race. I must have lost that like 20, 30 times when I played Spyro 3 for the first time, when I actually got to the end and completed it. It's like, wow, this is such a huge spike in difficulty.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, like I said, we're wrapping things up. So just a couple more titles I was going to mention. Rayman Legends, brilliant platformer game. Absolutely phenomenal mechanics, and got a really good sort of charm and visual look to it as well. Batman Arkham City, that's another one. Really great in a similar way to like Spider-Man on the PS4. Great story, great gameplay, all that sort of thing. And also it has Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill voicing Batman and Joker respectively, so that automatically makes it a win.
I'll just quickly go through my other favourites.
Yeah, okay.
I love Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. I think I love some of the F-Zero games. I love Mario Kart Double Dash on the Nintendo GameCube.
Yeah.
I love Speed Freaks on the PlayStation 1. That's probably the best game I played on the PlayStation 1. Very a hidden gem, definitely. There's just a lot of games.
Yeah, actually, while you bring up a few Mario titles, another one I'd bring up is Yoshi's Island. Mainly because it's a funny story. I got that game by accident. I brought a different game. They put the wrong cartridge in the wrong case back then. It was a Game Boy Advance version, early 2000s. And it was the wrong game, but I put it in anyway. And I thought, you know what? I like this game. I'm keeping it.
I am also a big fan. I also like some of the Mega Man games. Mega Man 4.
Oh,
yeah.
The first half of Mega Man 3.
Yeah.
I also love one of my favorite games, actually, is a fan game, Mega Man Rock and Roll.
Yeah, you said that before.
It's so good.
Well, if we're counting sorry.
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
I've also played a bit of Mega Man Unlimited. That's also a fan game. It's very difficult, but very enjoyable from what I played. Yeah. And let me guess, since I brought up fan games, Just an Ordinary Dude, Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit.
That would be one of them. So would Rayman Redemption, which is basically just a better version of Rayman 1 in every single way. Yeah, there's quite I don't know if this would count, but I suppose Freedom Planet. That was originally a Sonic fan game that became its own thing. Does that count?
I think there's even a Freedom Planet 2.
Yeah, there is a thing. I haven't played that yet, but I've only played a little bit of Freedom Planet 1, but from what I have played, it's really, really good.
SMG4 count as a game.
Sorry, what was that?
Does Super Mario Glitch 4 count as a game?
Oh, right. Maybe, yeah.
Because I always thought SMG4 is mostly a Gmod.
Okay, we're almost 40 minutes in. This has got to be the longest one we've done, and I do need to go out shortly, so we'll wrap it up here. Yeah.
There's just a lot of games. We
could continue this all day, but I think we've covered the gist of it.
I mean, there are some that would probably become my favorite if I played them more, like Wipeout 3, and you know, I love the first Resident Evil game as well. Now that I think about it,
fair enough.
And
there's a lot of titles you can think of.
And I just want to say, this is likely never going to happen, but I would really want for there to be a Loud House console game that is as first rate as some of the best of any generation.
Yeah, and we all know exactly what Loud House game to make. But there you go.
But hey, at least I got a couple of decent Rugrats games on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah. It is what it is. So I think we'll wrap it up there because we're 40 minutes in. I need to go. So it was nice talking to you both. It was a really fun talk. We'll have to do another one soon.
See you again, Dosser.
Oh yeah, because of course you're going to use that on me. You know, you say I don't have very innovative insults, but you're just stealing mine.
Should I say sodder, or should I say tosser, or should I say stodger?
No, you're just making words up. You don't even know what you're doing, do you? You're just talking crap now.
That's rich coming from you.
Not really. I speak a lot of sense. But yeah, okay, I think we'll end it there. Thanks you both for being in this podcast, and thank you all, viewers, for listening to us ramble on for the best part of an hour. And I will see you guys all next time.
It was great talking to you again, Gilbert.
Yeah, same to you.
Yeah, it's good having you on here, mate. So I'll see you guys next time.